Okay, people, we'll get started. We're welcome to the extraordinary meeting of the hearings meeting of the council to look at the submissions for the cycle lane project. I'm going to first of all ask if there's any conflicts of interest amongst councillors. And is there any apologies? No conflicts of interest or apologies? No, I wouldn't think so, Tim, no. We'll now move on to we're looking of course at the Transport Choices Cycleway project plans down to Kurupuni. I'll just ask Matt Steele Matt's going to give us just a few words of introduction.
Yes, so the report in front of you just essentially brings to your attention that we received 187 submissions on the cycleway project. You've received those already. There was interest indicated from members of the public that they would like to speak to council. Such a hearings was organised. 13 groups or individuals are going to speak to you this afternoon, 12 here in person, and one person joining us online a bit later. Just a reminder, the consultation is about the proposed cycleway running from Lansdowne to Kurupuni, so essentially from netball courts on Colombo Road up to Kurupuni. The proposed route is Colombo Road, Herbert Street, and then Dixon Street. So we consulted asking people for their views on the proposed route and any input they had to design, and also for their views on the alternative routes. So that is what they would be speaking to you about today.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Matt? No questions for Matt. Just a couple of things that I will mention. First of all, councillors, that after the people have given their submissions, you can ask questions, but this is not the forum where we get into discussion or make statements about how we feel. This is just simply questions, so we have the questions. The other thing too that I would ask anybody involved in this process is that there are no derogatory comments made about staff or councillors or whatever. This is not the sort of process for that either. This is just purely a submission on what talking about the proposal for the cycleway. So the first submitter we have is Aaron Slight. Welcome, Aaron. Aaron, you have 7 minutes to speak, and we have 3 minutes for questions.
Cool.
If I could just say to councillors that Aaron's submission is in volume 2, page 483. Aaron.
Thank you. So I've come today to the cycle lane. So today I'm making another submission, and it's around road safety and the roading and safety of our community. People ask, why do I bother? And sometimes I wonder. This is another submission I'm putting in, but I bother because I know better. I know more than most about road safety, and I've been involved in track design for 30 years. And 30 years ago we were moving barriers away from people to make it safer, not putting obstacles in the middle of roads to scare people into slowing down. This is just a crazy thing to do. Because accidents still happen. So I don't want to waste your time too much, but I feel I must go back through your process. I've had 2 days to get a submission together. I got notified that we were going to be doing this on Friday night, and 2 days of homework to get this together. So I'd like to just whip through quickly. I've given you two lots of stake together things. I'm not that capable on the IT, but I've managed to put this stuff out. But as you know, here I heard about the cycleway back in December. On the 8th of December, I contacted Beck saying that I would be interested in getting together and helping design this cycleway. I received a direct response, and then on the 15th, I have a response from Bex saying that she's going to pass on to our infrastructure manager. And then I have here from Gary, thank you Gary, saying that Aaron has a wealth of knowledge and we should tap into this on the 15th of December. So then I have a contact back from Mike on the 16th saying we contact each other. Hear nothing until the 1st of February. 1st of February I'm getting a bit annoyed. We've had a holiday. So I've written down my suggestions on the 1st of February. I've written down my suggestions. Here's some ideas. This is what we should be doing. It should be something different. We should not be looking at just doing on the roads. We should be looking at using our green spaces. We should be looking at education and getting people back on push bikes. We should be making it safer. We should not be removing 200 car parks like NZTA did when they did their cycleway. We should be doing a lot more thinking about, rather than the, obviously, I think the cut and paste that's happened with most things in New Zealand. Masterton is one of the last people to get on board with cycling. So we should be learning from their mistakes, not making the same bloody mistakes. We've got it down in Wellington, we've got it at Evans Bay, we've got it now in Kent Terrace. They're buggering the system. There's not going to be less cars in Masterton tomorrow than there is today. The town's only growing. You might be getting them out of cars, but there's not going to be less cars. Okay, so I'll take you back to the timeline. Wednesday, the 1st of February. I get an email, 2nd of June. Here's the plan. Thanks for the constructive, no thanks for the constructive ideas or anything. Here's your plan. This plan is about as creative as a box of crowns in an old people's home. It is cut and paste. It is useless. People are not going to follow this. They're not going to go head on with pedestrians on a sidewalk. They're not going to make a 90-degree corner after the east side shops to change sides of the road. They're not going to mount the footpath at Herbert Street to then get back off the footpath to put another crossing in. I've talked to no end about crossings. You're going to put in three more crossings for cyclists, but you won't put a crossing outside a secondary school. How crazy is that? How can you be thinking this is a good idea? I'm gobsmacked that you won't let 1,500 students out of Warrapuk College cross a crossing, but you'll let 3 cyclists go across one after 10 metres after crossing east side shops.
Now, Aaron, I've just pointed out that we have our deliberations meeting next week when we as a council have the conversation on this. We haven't made any decisions at all.
You need this, I know you. You need it.
You're there to convince us to make it.
Yeah, I'm convincing you because this is crazy. This is just diabolical. So I get that on 6th of June. On the 7th of June, I come back with what I think. I think of your operation. I think of your design. I said maybe you don't want my advice because this is by far it's just not even in the equation. How many of you people here cycle? Yeah, 2. I cycle every day. I use an e-scooter every day. Well, not every day. I use an e-scooter. I have a car licence, I have a motorbike licence, I tow a trailer, and I have a heavy vehicle licence. I know what goes on the roads. So that's what I came up with putting this through. So then I readdressed to this here. And this is 2 days I've had to put together. So can we just start with the with the photos up here? Thank you. So this is NZTA's cycleway in Masterton that removed 200 car parks. So we start here. This is at the shops, at Solway shops. So the cycleway starts here and finishes in 50 metres. It finishes at Judge Road. And then can we move to the next slide, please? So then it restarts at the roundabout at Kurapuni. Restarts there, and then can we go again? So when we get to the next roundabout, the cycle has stopped. There's nowhere for a cycle to go. So you go through that roundabout and it restarts again. And this goes through the, let's stay on that slide. It goes through the next roundabout where it stops and starts. And then we get to the slide we were on. This is after the bridge, the cycle lane finishes. And then the next slide shows you the cycle lane finishes because in our madness we've put a pedestrian refuge in the middle of the cycle, what would have been the cycle lane. So it's finished. This cycle lane leads to nowhere. It leads nil. There's no finish, no start, it leads nowhere. So if we move on, NZTA was going back the other way. They started the roundabout. I caught one cyclist in my hour driving around taking photographs illegally in my car. When this cyclist, where's the cyclist? Is he in the cycle lane? Is he on the crossing? No, he's on the medium strip. He's on the concrete medium strip. He's followed none of your what you want him to follow. So carry on. We get to the first roundabout. The cycleway finishes. Get the next roundabout. Cycleway finishes. We get to the next roundabout. Cycleway finishes. We get through that roundabout, cycleway finishes in 10 metres. That's NZTA's governor. Okay, so we move on. This is Masterton District Council's governor. We can't start our cycle lane here because we've got pedestrian refuge in the middle of the road. We've got a wasted 5 metres of road here because we decided to put our pedestrians out there. So moving on, again, we still can't start there. So we're moving on. We can't start until after the roundabout. So then we cycle for one block and then we move on. And this is what happens to our cycleway. We can move on again. So there's our cycle lane. And our cycle lane goes for 2 blocks and delivers you to nowhere. So then we can move on again. So that's the end of the cycleway up to 2 blocks. Coming back, one more please. So that's because we can't go any further. I've missed one, but coming back is the same thing. It leads nowhere, it leads for 2 blocks. This is where we believe we're going to do. We're going to put people on that footpath there, going head on to each other on their cycles and and walking. Sorry. So that's where we're going to put them. So moving on again, and then we're going to have to move something we've just put in place. We move on again. Here is a road that we badly need a cycleway because there's no room. This is outside the east side shops at 10:30. There is plenty of room to cycle up each side of the road like we've done for many years. And as is my submission, as I lived only 50 metres away from this, I know this road is 30 metres wide and there's plenty of room that we can carry on doing what we've always done, is cycle beside the cars that are parked. You'll notice that there are no cars parked because no cars parked in the street. So there's plenty more other options I think we can do. So turning off the photo, turning to my next map, I'm thinking that maybe, why don't we use the line paths? Why don't we use what we've already got? So these line paths here, the red lines are what I think we should be looking at doing with our cycleways. They actually lead somewhere and connect somewhere. They actually get to the other end of town. They actually get to the middle of town. We can use from, if you want to go from Lakeview, we can cut through the back of the park there and get through to the camera block. We can stay off the roads. We can stop all this congestion. We can lead through the cemetery, through, as you say, from there through Karkar Street, up through Memorial Park. Let's start using our ground. Let's use Memorial Park. Let's use the Solway Showgrounds. Why are the gates locked? They're only locked so people don't spray paint shit. You know, why can we not get together and use our own places and keep off these roads? So these are some of the things that I would like to do. So then moving on, you know, as I asked in my when I was talking to the committee about getting on the committee, what are we trying to achieve? Are we trying to get people off the roads? Are we trying to save emissions? Are we trying to keep people safe? What are we trying to do? So here I have a bus route. So we could probably put kids in buses if we had some bus stops. We could probably go do a west side bus and an east side bus, and they could probably run every 10 minutes in the morning, and you could jump on, jump off, and then you would get to school. Not a real new idea, but probably would work. Then these people wouldn't have to go to school in their parents' cars, because I sat like a stalker outside the Red Side club rooms, Red Star club rooms at 3 o'clock till 3:10 on a Tuesday afternoon, and I counted 15 walkers, 7 cyclists and 5 people using scooters. So is that worth building a cycleway? I don't know. My next photo is what you at Masterton District Council are doing for us as a pedestrian crossing that isn't a pedestrian crossing, because all it is a pedestrian refuge. So you can stand in the middle of the road and be saved by this concrete piece of mass, or you can stand on the side of the road and get saved by it. But look, there's a cyclist. I thought we were doing a cycleway. The cyclist got nowhere to ride his bike now. We've been putting this in the last 18 months, people, and we're talking about a cycle lane. I don't know where, it just confuses me what we're thinking about, trying to do this stuff when we've got no idea on the wider picture of things. So that's today my quick summary, but I'd like you to take these home, because as Beck said last time I made a submission, where is this information? So it is somewhere, but today I've decided to copy it and give it to you, and I hope you think about it. And if you are going to go ahead with this, I think you've got rocks in you. Sorry.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron? Yeah, Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Aaron, for your presentation. With this, the information that you've shared, a lot of it does look quite pointless. But can you see potential benefits for the children from, for example, Lakeview School in terms of getting to where they need to go? Like, there's a clear purpose and benefit to this one?
No, because they can use the lime tracks and go through the cemetery and get to where they need to go. By going down Clumber Road to nowhere, it doesn't get them anywhere. My plan gets you to both sides of town. The kids I counted were probably going to the east side block, as we call it. If we exited your school on the left and got them going down past the lake on the lime path, they could go all the way not using the road. Much better idea, I would have thought.
Thank you. Any other questions? Another question?
Sorry, one thing I did have on mind, I also have a plan of a pedestrian crossing that I think would work better. We talked about a raised pedestrian crossing last time. I've got a plan in there in my drawings. The plan is very simple, that you have cat's eyes before the pedestrian crossing. So the cat's eyes warn you that there's a pedestrian crossing coming up. It's not a speed bump. There's simple things as in removing that pedestrian refuge so that cyclists can get by. It's removing the lamppost that's always on the inside or the closest side to the driver, so it creates a blind spots for kids going onto the crossing. It has a bar around it to stop shortcutting, and it's removed all the vegetation so you haven't got blind spot. And in my one I've got a red square where you stop, and if you're stationary at that point, traffic will give way to you. If you're not, they won't. Way safer than what we've had in designs than we've had forever. And the raised pedestrian crossing we talked about last time, all that does is make your car stop slower.
Thank you, Aaron. Look, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your submission. As I said before, we will be deliberating next Wednesday as a council. We've come to no decisions whatsoever yet. So thank you for your submission, and we'll certainly take it into account.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Ingrid.
We now move to Barbara Antonia Plough
Sorry.
from Chanel Court.
I haven't been ploughed for a while, but that's okay. It's been a while. So firstly, thanks for the opportunity to speak to our submission today. Obviously we are business owners in Herbert Street. We own Chanel Court Motel. We've been there for over 15 years, and obviously we're long-time residents of Masterton and the Wairarapa. So whilst we see the benefits of this project and how it can benefit the community, I think that there's a lot more research needs to be done into the route that this proposed track might be going to follow. Obviously, but like Aaron, we believe that it's just a cookie cutter. We've just gone to the roads and we haven't actually thought outside the square of how we use this and keep people safe. A few years ago, or probably about 10 or so, there was obviously someone down Kurapuni Street that didn't like a lot of noise, and all the traffic got moved, heavy traffic got moved or recommended to move off Kurapuni and Coburn Street.
2011.
That traffic now comes down Herbert Street. We want to propose a bikeway. So we get all the heavy traffic, all the contractors, buses, tractors, harvesters, you name it, especially in the summer, which obviously is a cycleway. You would hope that it would be used more because of the warmer weather. And then you want to add a cycleway down the side of this and lose one side of our parking. Obviously, as a business, that is very concerning when we have a lot of contracts with truck companies, Kiwi Rail, Britons. You know, these are our livelihood. If we lose all of our parking outside of our business place, we work really hard to build a really good rapport with our neighbours. Obviously, Mum and Dad's house and the motel, we have neighbouring properties, so we manage all our parking in front of our own residences. They are not waking up neighbours, they are not blocking driveways, they are not parking in the school or the church. You know, Herbert Street is the preferred option in this proposal. We are concerned that there is a church, a school, a sports hub and a motel down that street. Coburn and Kurapuni have none of those things. They are just all residential, and they are still reasonably wide streets, so we don't quite understand why our street is the preferred option. We did ask that question at the forum that we had at Chanel College, and basically we're told by the designers that were there that because of the frontage that the college has on the street, there is less residential houses. However, no thought's been put into the fact that we have 20 or 30 cars parked every night in our business place. So does the Red Star Sports Club. The church has always got cars at it. The school has basketball, after school activities. There's cars everywhere down our street all week. I know one of the days Steve came to drop the paperwork off, there was a funeral on and there was traffic everywhere because obviously Red Star is also used for that sort of stuff. Funerals, 21sts, sports photos, it's a sports hub. There's tournaments on there, probably we have every 5 to 6 weeks, there's probably something on at Red Star that impacts onto our parking in our street, which is all fine, but obviously if we lose one side of our street, it's going to be a massive problem. Really interesting at the moment, you've got a road counter down there, which I'm gathering is to track the traffic and the usage. However, it's only on the other end of the Colombo Road end of the school, so it's not tracking any of the traffic that's coming from Dixon Street that's perhaps going to Red Star, Chanel, our motel and to the college.
I do wonder why it's
out
there,
one
because
end.
it's always been at Red Star.
Yeah.
And now, for some reason, it's way down by the bird sanctuary, so anything that comes to all those businesses is not going to show up as numbers on the tracking numbers, which I find very interesting.
We were interested that it didn't go around to encompass Makota and the Kura and the Makota Early Learning Centre. We were told that that was a financial thing to add that area on, which just seems crazy if we're trying to connect our schools and our cycleway that is obviously one of the intentions. We're just skipping that, which obviously would also take it all the way off Colombo Road for quite a stretch of that road. Just things that, to me, safety should be more important than dollars sometimes. School pickups, I mean, you know, everyone says, oh, the kids can bike to school. Well, the reality is that's not how life works now. We pick up kids from multiple schools. I'm a mum's got lots of grandkids. We are taking one to swimming and someone's got rugby practice and then someone's got to go over to dancing and then we've got to go get them all picked up. And the idea of them all walking and getting everywhere where they need to be at the right time, it doesn't actually work. So that is why a lot of families do drive now, and it's just that all our sport is now not on Saturdays, it's multiple nights during the week, kids play multiple sports, exactly what we want our children to be doing, to be active and involved in all these things in our community. It's really important. We have been pretty supportive members of all the events in the Wairarapa. As a motel, we have personally chosen not to do social housing. We believe that some of us have to support the community events and all the community involvement in, you know, all our roading, all our building that's happening. You know, we have all the Moore Wilsons and Noel Lemming and all those, Harvey Norman, all those projects bring a lot of contractors into town. They struggle to find accommodation. The roading has been hugely busy for us, which is fantastic. Where do these people go if they can't come and park a truck safely on the side of our road with their hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gear on it? These are all the implications that it has for our business. We have decided that there is about 4 motels doing social housing in the Wairarapa, and that is everybody's personal, you know, preference what they do with their business. And as locals, we've decided that we won't do that because we want to support the community. Golden Shares, all the sports tournaments, Wings of the Wairarapa Balloon Festival, all those things. If we don't have accommodation available, we don't have visitors to our region. Those are the visitors that spend money in our community, not our residents that are in our motels. So those are the things that we think. And if we know that if we lose a whole side of our parking to our street, it's going to have a massive impact on our business. If people can't park their vehicles safely with us, they won't stay with us. They will go and stay other places. That's just a pretty obvious thing. We asked why it was, when we asked why it was going down Herbert Street, they mentioned about the area that is non-residential in front of the school. However, they haven't thought about the fact that there's only one entrance into the bird sanctuary area, and there's probably 70 to 80 houses in there. They all come out directly opposite Chanel College. We were proposing to put more people and more busyness. Like I say, we have 16 rooms at our motel, 10 room backpackers. We would have 20 to 30 vehicles every night in our place of work. Same with Red Star, and obviously the thing with our businesses is that people don't just drive home and stay home all night, and people go in and out. They're not just staying in, going out. You know, our traffic guys park at night and they would go in and out 4 or 5 times during the night when they're working. So there's all that kind of traffic. There's more access onto the road out of our businesses than just a normal residential household. Red Star obviously have a similar situation. Obviously we have a huge overflow from Memorial Park when there's anything on there. that all comes down our street, and as I already mentioned, anything on at Red Star impacts a lot in our parking. There is, in the submission, there is proposal to put a crossing in outside Chanel College, which we think is a good idea, although we have indicated on the plan that it's to go directly opposite the other bus stop, which we don't know if that's a great idea, just because it then impacts on residents' homes, having a car bus stop on the other side, right outside their homes. And obviously we have a church slightly down the road a little bit that is not actually hugely utilised always during the day. Maybe a safer option. A crossing is probably a good idea on our street though. Maybe it'll slow some of the traffic down. We have some pretty high speed traffic goes down our street and then onto Colombo Road and obviously out of town. Obviously we are also an access way for vehicles coming into town, which is why we get all the trucks and tractors and contractors and stuff, because they come in from the coast and turn at Lakeview and come all the way down Colombo through Herbert Street and into town. They don't go to the roundabout, they don't go up to Faulkners, they just don't go that way, they come our way, which is hugely busy. Kind of feel like we're just getting everything put down our road. Personally, we feel that there is better options and much safer options with the cycleway, and there actually definitely needs to be some more consultation with this. We can't understand why we wouldn't be looking at Kurupuni and Coburn as a better option. It would then encompass Masterton Primary, MIS, which are probably two of the bigger schools that may have, we would believe, had bikes, probably MIS particularly. I know my sons went there and a lot of kids did, there was quite a lot of kids bike there. However, it's stopping at the moment, it's stopping at Kurupuni by Duncan's Pharmacy. Also that end of Kurupuni, of our street, of Herbert Street, where it comes out by Toyota, there is a crazy busy intersection. You can only turn one way, you can't pull up and turn both ways. There is huge backlogs of traffic when it's pick up and drop off time at school, and just a really busy intersection. Obviously the end of Kurupuni Street has a one-way part where there is a island, or whatever you want to call that, where there's no traffic going through that first part of the road, probably for about maybe 50 to 100 metres at the start there. So I'm not sure why we would even be considering that's not a better option. Yeah, we
Nadia, we're just about up, sorry,
Yeah.
with time. Okay, if you just want to make a quick conclusion.
2 minutes. I mean, we just think a lot more sort of consultation needs to be done. You know, where should it go? Do we even need it? Will it be utilised? Are we obtaining enough data to ensure it's going to be utilised? How will this affect all the residents, businesses, schools, clubs on our street if it's installed? How will it impact us while it's being built if you do install it? Could there be a temporary mock-up put up of this proposed motorcycleway to see if it's, one, firstly used, and two, the impact it has on our traffic and safety for our kids that are on it? Because obviously if you're going to use it, it's going to be kids. I can't even see how it's going to be safe. I just guess we all sit in the same room, but does this link in with our national cycleway strategies? You know, how have we looked at all the health and safety around this? All those things. I've taken note of several cycleways. I've been in Dunedin for a week at a sports tournament and in Wellington over the weekend at sport, and there's cycleways everywhere, and I haven't seen people on them. There's bollards in the middle of the road. People have got to navigate them with their vehicles. It just seems crazy. It just seems like we're putting these obstacles in our roadways, and I don't know how it's going to actually make it safer. I feel like it's going to, there was cars parked in them, people not even adhering to the fact that they were for bikes. Like, it's crazy. We would hope that it's going to make people more active, but is it? Is that the life that a lot of people live in our world now? I don't know. I mean, obviously COVID has changed a lot of things for a lot of people. I'd love to think that it will, but personally I don't know if it will. It's just, yeah.
Thank you, Tania.
Gary, I'd just like to quickly add that one of my biggest concerns was that when we looked at it, we never looked at the cluster of schools around MIS, we never looked at the cluster around Makora. But my biggest thing is that no one's going to bike in the winter time, that we've got this beautiful park. We have people and families that come to our motel because of our park. They love it, and they bring their children. So why are we not in the summer months, with longer days, holidays, Christmas vacations, why are we not targeting to get our families to use their bikes to go to that part of town? Netball's never going to bike. 3 nights a week now, it's dark by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. We're never going to increase people biking to netball. Saturdays, as Tanya said, you've got one to drop off at Marist, you've got one going down to Sharon Stevens in Solway for ballet, and one's at swimming pool. People can't bike, it's too busy, but I just think we haven't looked at where we need to move safely our families. I don't think we're going to change. Talk about connecting schools. St Pat's comes to Chanel probably once a week, twice a week, and they walk. When I went to Carterton School, we jumped on our bike at 1 o'clock with our teacher and went down and had a sports exchange for South End, but that's all gone because of health and safety and everything. I just think life has changed very much, but I need to think we need to target our lovely centre, our lovely swimming pool, skate park. How can we get our families there in the summer months utilising that area better? I think we're going to build a cycleway. Actually, I'd like to see where Aaron's 7 bikes comes, because boy, I've done some surveys around all the schools the last 2 months, and I've seen no more than 5 bikes on a good day from Chanel. MIS is the biggest bike school.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Barbara, any questions for Barbara and Tanya? Yes, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Tanya. Would you have been doing this submission if the preferred option was option 3? Would you be here doing this?
We still have both concerns. We have both concerns about the area around the, we haven't talked about that because obviously we've just talked about our business because it's 10 minutes, about the area around Columba Road Courts. That's hugely concerning.
And I think the staff very much saw that when they spent some time there. Absolutely chaotic. I see Pioneer, just as a matter of interest, have opened up the fence area into Jean Street because it's so dangerous with their cars coming out of that park. They're actually now going out through Jean Street. It's just a nightmare because they didn't shut down
I guess if it wasn't going to affect our business, maybe not. I mean, it's hard to know. But our concern is that at the moment, where it's proposing, the number one idea is to hugely impact our livelihood, and it's not cool.
Thank you very much.
It's a safety factor. Far too busy a street. And one of the young ladies did say to me, well, perhaps, Barbara, when we put a pedestrian crossing down there and the speed limit will be 30 down Herbert Street, the cars will all disappear and it won't be a safety factor. And I said, but they're not going to disappear, they're going to go somewhere else. That just shifts the safety problem. Hugely busy street, hugely. Rex and I have lived there for 25 years. It used to take me 8 to 10 minutes to get to Fernridge for assembly. Now it takes 20, and that's great because the town is busier. But that's just a reality.
Well, thank you very much, Barbara and Tanya. That we really do appreciate your submission. As I say, we're deliberating next Wednesday, and that's when we'll come to some conclusions. Okay, Kirsty McCarthy. Hi, Kirsty. 7 minutes meant to be Kirsty, with 3 minutes for questions. Kirsty's Volume 1, page 304 is Kirsty's submission. Kirsty, over to you.
Cool, thanks everyone for the opportunity. I have to say it's a little bit scarier sitting on this side of the table than the side of the table. So thanks for the opportunity to come along today. If it's all right, I'm just going to read directly from my notes so I don't miss anything. So kia ora, for those of you who I haven't met, my name's Kirsty McCarthy. I'm a resident of Masterton. I'm a keen recreational cyclist, and I'm a supporter of getting our kids active through sport, active recreation or play. Firstly, thanks to staff for preparing the successful funding application to Transport Choices and for the work that's been done on this project to date. I'm here to strongly express my support for the project, and I believe I also represent the silent majority, those in the community who are supportive of the initiative, but for many reasons will not formally submit through a consultation process. As New Zealanders, we're very good at expressing a negative stance, however, we're not good at telling council when we're in favour of something, or in fact when they're doing a great job. In my perfect world, every kid that attends school would be able to safely ride a bike to school. Everyone in our community who wishes to do so would be able to safely commute around our town by bike or foot. I would like Masterton to embrace alternative forms of travel that are good for our own health and the health of our planet. For me, it's hard to believe that we're at a hearing to decide whether this project will go ahead. To me, it's a no-brainer that we should embrace an externally funded initiative that will improve safety for kids who are already cycling to and from school, and will make cycling a more appealing option for more children, meaning less cars on our roads, especially at the start and end of the school day. Kids who start the day in an active way have better outcomes at school. A recent survey in Denmark looked at nearly 20,000 Danish kids between the age of 5 and 19. It found that kids who cycled or walked to school, rather than travelling by car or public transportation, performed measurably better on tasks demanding concentration, such as solving puzzles, and that the effects lasted for up to 4 hours after they got to school. Research suggests not only does biking or walking give kids stronger bones and muscles and reduce anxiety and depression, it appears to improve their self-esteem, independence and spatial navigation. It's a straightforward way to get most of the 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous exercise recommended for for children each day. Crucially for the planet, an active school journey increases the chances that a child will grow up to commute by foot, bike or scooter, helping prepare kids for a society with lower greenhouse gas emissions. In addition to the benefit to our kids, a cycleway stretching the length of Colombo Road, Herbert Street to Kurupuni will link to our existing network of fantastic recreational trails, providing a safe link to the south end of our town. Local residents and visitors to our town can enjoy the rec trails and then head to Kurupuni shops for coffee, cake, etc. without having to navigate a dangerous State Highway 2. Remembering we have got the recent addition of the MCA camping site on the former Red Star grounds, and we can expect an influx of regular visitors who almost always have bikes on boards and full wallets to discover our town. I would also like to politely remind elected members that 12 months ago you adopted the Masterton Climate Action Plan, which included 4 themes, one of which is the 20-minute town, and how we can, quote, move around the district using less climate harming emissions, create an accessible, safe and attractive local areas where people can access most of their everyday needs within a 20-minute walk, cycle or local public transport. Specifically, the Climate Action Plan states the Council will investigate active transport networks and cycleways to encourage alternative modes of transport and create cycle lanes or shared roads and footpaths, prioritising areas that connect to schools and recreation spaces, including a cycle network connecting Kurupuni, Masterton South, Town Centre, Masterton East and West and Lansdowne.
Travel fresh.
Sometimes we need to make bold decisions and sometimes the community needs to make compromises. Given the well-documented opposition to this project, but a small but vocal section of the community, this might be one of those times. Masterton District Council might not be in the position again to have a fully externally funded addition to its cycle infrastructure. We should grab that opportunity, and I urge elected members to support this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kirsty. Any questions for Kirsty?
Yeah, I've got one.
Yeah, Councillor
Have
Allen.
you seen examples of a town similar to ours that started from the position Marston's in at the moment, maybe in your previous role, that's now got a successful, vibrant network that works?
I know Hastings has got an outstanding system of on-road cycleways, separated cycleways. Like Aaron said, we are way behind the rest of the country, and I totally agree with Aaron that the use of our green spaces, but I think that's a different conversation and maybe one to turn through the LTP. I think there is definite opportunities for linking our green spaces. But I personally think that providing safe on-road options really adds to the offering that our town has.
Any further questions for Kirsty? No further questions, Kirsty, thank you very much. And we'll be, as I say, deliberating next Wednesday, and decisions will be made then. Okay, we're moving on now to Patrick Morgan from the Cycling Action Network, and Patrick's online. Hi Patrick.
Hello.
You're on mute, Patrick.
Hang on.
Hello.
Can you hear
Good
us?
afternoon. I can hear you fine.
Can you hear us, Patrick?
Yes, I can.
We can't hear you.
Just a moment. Give me a second, please.
Patrick's time hasn't started.
Yeah. Are you there, Patrick? We have Patrick. Are you there? Can you hear me?
No, he's probably rejoining. I'll let Celia and we'll see if she can hear.
Okay. Can you hear us, Celia?
Oh, kia ora. Yes, I
You
can.
can't hear Celia
That's
either.
wonderful.
Yeah. Celia, we just can't pick you up at the moment. We're having a bit of trouble with our mic.
No, we can't hear you.
We'll come back to you, Celia.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Oh, okay. Let's try a different. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Right. Thank you. Oh, hello,
We're
Patrick.
just getting our IT to have a look.
Here, why don't we go to Marilyn?
Thanks, so.
Can you hear us now?
I can.
Thank you. What about you, Patrick?
I can hear you fine, probably one of us at a time, so I'm happy to go after Celia.
I think Patrick's scheduled to go first.
Yeah, Patrick, you're
Okay.
scheduled to go first.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay.
So, Patrick, you've got 7 minutes to speak to us, and we've got 3 minutes for questions for you. So, you just go for it.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you, kia ora, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this important matter. I'm going to assume that you've read the submission from Cycling Action Network. But in summary, we would like you to go ahead, and here's the reasons we think that now is a great time to do this. There are many reasons to invest in better cycling in Masterton. It's flat, things are relatively close together. People like to drive because driving is it's easy and convenient, but as we want to make our cities and towns more livable, more people will be on bikes. Give me hands up if you've tried an e-bike in the last year. Okay, I'm seeing a few hands up there. Please don't miss out on the fun. Why Colombo Road? I guess it makes connections to sporting facilities. I would urge you to get out here is come to the party, and I'm not sure they're funding 100% of the capital costs of the project. Seems like a pretty good deal for the council, and you really want to indicate to Waka Kotahi that Masterton District is keen to work with them to improve transport options in the district. It also sends a strong signal to your staff that you are serious about improving transport options in the district. You want them to get that good signal to show that there's good political support for this. Now, like any project that you do that's worthwhile, there's bound to be some pushback, particularly when it's happening on streets that people are used to using in a certain way. Now, at CAN, I've been an advocate here for more than 15 years, and I'm sure I've heard every reason not to do something. But what my submission to you today is, now is a great time to do this. You've got the money from the government, you've got a decent plan there. I think there's increasing amounts of public support, and I'd urge you to really weigh that up against any kind of I guess, negative feedback you've heard about this. Give people a chance to get used to it, and I guarantee that most people will adjust. So now is a good time to get into this. A couple more things. You know, this should just be a building block in your network. I know you've got some painted cycleways in Masterton already, but the evidence shows that only protected, separated cycleways give many people the confidence they need to use the bike for more of their journeys. You're not building for people who are already out there riding. They're what we call the strong and confident. You're building for people who, you know, are a bit nervous but really want streets that are fit for purpose before they start riding. Now, some people might say, there's plenty of room on the footpaths. Why don't we just, you know, paint a line on the footpath and put people on bikes there? That would be a false solution to take. Firstly, people on footpaths are primarily for people on feet, and they're not designed to be shared paths. They often have a lot of driveways or surface irregularities. That means they're really not suitable for people on bikes. The other thing I'd note really is that it's not enough just to build a protected cycleway. You should be thinking about running events to encourage people to use it. Some sort of activation events that get people excited about using the new facility. So I think in my submission too I've noted that I didn't see any you know, the demand for parking along this route. I didn't see that in the paper the councillors gave you. So that would really help you make a good decision on this. Because of course, anecdote is not as useful as a good parking study. I'm going to pause there and I can take questions. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Do we have any questions for Patrick? Councillor Goodwin?
Yes, we had a submitter earlier who commented on our poor road design, which I'd never noticed before, but it seems evident with the way that we put, I suppose you'd call them raised platforms out for pedestrians onto crossing areas and islands in the middle for them. And that very design is actually in conflict with using the space you've got on the road to accommodate cycles. I just wonder if you have a comment on good and bad road designs.
Did you hear that, Patrick? Looks like you did an impression of
Sorry, I'm the last bit.
Did you not hear anything, Patrick? Off again. Well, hey, look, thank you, Patrick, for your submission. We can't pick you up at the moment, so we will go forward.
Sorry, I just missed the last.
We'll be deliberating next week and coming up with a decision then. Thank you very much. Okay, we move on to... Is Richard Curtin in the audience? Richard, if you could come up to one of the seats here.
Okay.
And Richard's with Celia, who's online. Hi, Celia.
Goodbye.
Hello.
You've got 7 minutes with 3 minutes for questions. Who's taking the lead here?
I'll let Celia go
I was
first.
going to start by introducing who Travel Fresh are.
Yep.
And we're an informal group that formed from some consultation and discussion about climate change and looking at what we can do both individually and what changes we need to support. And I noticed that today in the Wairarapa Times Age there was a very good article about how rapidly things are changing with the climate. And it may seem that we're distant from that in that we're a small country, a small population and a small town, but I think you need to give people some hope that they can do something in their own lives that will make a bit of a difference. And even if you're sceptical about that, the health benefits from cycling and walking are huge. The independence for young children And I do think we're trying to build this to encourage a new generation of cyclists. I've just come back from Christchurch, and I went by ferry and bus, and it took a long way back, and I took my folding bike. And it was a real pleasure to try something that I haven't tried very often before, which is a two-way cycleway. Because when I saw the proposal, I thought that's interesting, a little bit different and challenging, but actually having used them in Christchurch, they're fantastic. Partly because, you know, you go with the tidal flow of people are more going one way than going the other way. One comment I had about your design was, and I realised that there's more detailed design work to be done, is that when you cross from one side of the road to the other with that cycle lane, it's important for pedestrians that there's a separate area for crossing than for cyclists. Pedestrians and cyclists, when cyclists are trying to move at pace, and some of your pedestrians are elderly or frail or just toddling along with as preschoolers, holding on to their parents' hand, they do not mix well with cyclists in a hurry. And the cyclists are equally frustrated. So I understand at the end near the sports fields, there's already been a shared path installed, and I can see why you want to keep that. But in general, they're not brilliant, but that one will do. I think I had a quick skim on some of the submissions. Some say there's not very many cyclists. Well, that's probably an indication that conditions aren't very good for them. And you may not see a huge increase until you have a whole network. I hope you will see a decent increase with this particular project, but there may need to be more of a network. So that's some general comments. I'm happy to answer questions, but I'd like Richard, as part of our informal group, to say a few words about his experience cycling and why it's a good idea to have Colombo Road cycle lane.
Thank you, Celia. Richard.
Yeah, thanks, Celia. So yeah, as Celia said, my name's Richard Curtin. I'm a part of this advocacy group that we're looking to support low carbon travel options. My background is I'm a shareholder in South Wairarapa Vets. We employ 65 staff across the Wairarapa in 3 separate councils. We've measured our carbon footprint, and we're pretty driven to try and lower our footprint, and included in our footprint is our staff commute. So from that I started cycling to work myself. We surveyed our staff around cycling to find out what the interest was from the team on cycling. And 50% of our staff are keen to cycle. The issue and the main barrier to this is safety. Safety wherever they are around cycling. If it's a new venture for them, that's going to be the #1 deterrent to cycling. In terms of our cycleways in the Wairarapa, they're non-existent. I cycle from Greytown to Carterton, so between towns. I see one little bit of green paint in the middle of Carterton when I cycle. I think any venture that gets people out of cars into bikes, gets them moving, is good. I 100% agree that if we are not providing safe infrastructure, we won't see those numbers increase. People have said that, you know, cities abroad like Amsterdam have always had cycleways, and that's not true. Those cities have been retrofitted. They got their cycleways in the 70s, and you look at what that's done to those cities over there. It's really taken off. So I 100% agree that if we build these safe cycleways, people will cycle. I cycled from Greytown to Featherston in the weekend, the back way past Woodside. Saw 10-15 cyclists along those gravel roads. People are getting out there and want to do it. Like I say, it ticks so many boxes. Fitness, mental health, and for us, low carbon travel, we need these initiatives because there's too many barriers to do this on our own. So, yeah, I fully support what Celia's saying and full support of this cycleway proposal.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Richard. We've got questions for Richard or Celia. Marama, Councillor Tutor.
Would you see the alternative number 2 or number 3 still giving people out there still cycling, good for their health, but to just a different route they'll be taking?
I really like that route in terms of linking up like the netball courts in Kurapuni. I like Celia. I've never really been on two-way cycleways, so I'm not sure how that works with walking. But yeah, you're referring to the route down Colombo Road. Yeah. Oh yeah, perfect. That's perfect. Thank you. Around the back of Colombo Road at that section. Yeah, I've never been down there, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think for me, if I'm cycling, the main priority, like I want to go reasonably direct to my destination. It's often like, you know, cycling from Greytown to Carterton to work. You know, we talked to the Carterton District Council, well, couldn't you go around the back roads around there so you're sort of out of the way? Well, no, that adds 5 to 10 minutes to my commute to work. You know, like, why can't I just come up the main streets?
That if you bike from Carterton to Featherstone or Greytown,
Yep.
you reach along Woodside.
Yep, 100%.
Well, that's
Not direct, 100%.
No.
So if I'm on a leisure ride on a Sunday, that's fine. That's fine. If I'm wanting to get to work, then I want to be reasonably direct.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I think that's probably more of a priority than direct. So let's say if we talk about, like, what are we thinking? Are we thinking about safety of kids or getting people out on bikes? Direct's not so important. Safety is. Having a space. It's funny, I've cycled in Wellington, right? Now it's not very safe in Wellington, but I tell you what, a green bit of paint and space makes you feel a hell of a lot better than you're trying to weave around vehicles. So I think if we talk about directness, is, in my view, is not as important as safety. You need that safe space on the road, and that will get people out on bikes, which is surely what we all want.
Thank you. Any further questions for either Richard or Celia? No further questions. Thank you very much, both Richard and Celia, for your time. And we deliberate next Wednesday.
Thank you.
Good one.
Thank you.
Well done, guys.
Okay.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add one thing which came up in the submissions, is that people can't, that bikes are expensive. Well, a second-hand bike isn't expensive, and it's a lot cheaper than a second car. So if we can allow particularly our young people those options, that would be terrific. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celia. Okay, Marilyn Bouzet. Hi, Marilyn.
Hi.
7 minutes, Marilyn, round about. 3 minutes for questions.
Is that all I'm allowed?
Your submissions are in volume 1, page 37 for councillors. So, Marilyn, over to you.
Well, thank you. And as a long-time resident in Herbert Street, and probably longer than most people in this room, I think I need to be able to just talk a little bit more about the Herbert Street side of things, although just going over a few points in my submission, I really am more concerned about who is the target market for this. So are we assuming an increase in cyclists, which is fine, and I'm not against people cycling or anything like that, but are we assuming that there's going to be a lot more children cycling? I used to cycle to school. I started off cycling to my first job. But I think the whole thing has changed, and the gentleman Richard, who was talking about safety, I think is the most important issue, particularly in the route that is proposed here. I think that is the most important thing. Also, we've got to look at, this was obviously mooted by New Zealand Transport Association. They've obviously given money, and that was in 2017. Has there been an increase in Masterton and cyclists? No. Has there been not greatly. Has there been an increase in Masterton and cars? Yes. And I think we can all say that is definitely the point. So are we then going to see over the next 5 years, is there going to be an increase in particularly children? I'm looking at that in particular because I think it affects a lot of children in Herbert Street for the schools that are there. So I'm looking particularly at that, not at Makora College or the other areas. So when you look at the cycleway which is proposed through Herbert Street, I noticed the gentleman said he hadn't been down one of the other streets. I doubt if he's ever been down Herbert Street much, because I live there, I'm there all the time, and I could count on, as I've said to other people, probably one hand, how many bikes go down Herbert Street. It is very, very few. How many bikes are used by the children at Chanel College? I believe someone went around there a while ago and there were 6 bikes in the cycle in the cycle area. So there are very few cyclists, and the students, you know, are we going to guarantee that they will all be getting on their bikes? With another thing with children these days, with going to school, they carry a lot of gear. So if they have to also manage that gear on a bike, usually I see them, their parents arrive between 8:30 and 9 in the morning, the cars are all parked outside, both sides of the road, and the kids are getting out with all their gear, their bags, their sports equipment and everything like that. So that is really important, I think, that are they going to be using all those things on their bikes? Herbert Street is very, very busy. It has become far busier over the last 10 years than ever been. It is a through fair width for cars from Dixon Street. Everyone goes down Herbert Street into Colombo Road. It is extremely busy. It's very difficult to back out of my place and not see that I've got to wait for 2 or 3 minutes for cars to go past. Now the car parks that have been proposed to be taken on the south side are used all the time. There's, I counted today, there was 12 cars already parked there, and that's not even at the time of school time. 12 cars, there's a bus parked on that side of the road. They are used by parents picking up their children, the heavy vehicles at Chanel Court. There's no way that they, and they are part of, I would imagine that Mrs. Pale would be talking about that they are part of their whole economics. So how are they going to be shifted to the other side of the road? This is all the big logging trucks, which will take up a number of other car parks. It will be very difficult for any residents trying to back out of their parks. The patrons of the Red Star Court, they can, I mean, you know, they're being used all the time. The club rooms aren't just used on a Saturday. There was a mention about that you'll be able to have events and you'll be able to take people to go to the events. The events are already in place. Memorial Park is used all the time. The Red Star club rooms are used all the time. Chanel Court, they have afternoon activities. They have evening activities. They are used all the time, so we don't need to invent new events. The church, which is next door to me, uses the Chanel Court car park and both sides of the road for their church every Sunday and for other things that they've got on. So to take out the south side car parks, to me, is not feasible for what is going to be going on there. A bus stop and a shelter is already on the south side, and that's got easy access to the children. Why? There's the thought of putting the bus on the north side, and a crossing seems to me just something extra. Also, if you look at the alternative, and I know the people in Kurupuni Street probably don't want this, but at least there are no retail places, there's no schools. The school has got a back entrance into Chanel College, which would be far easier for them. If you go down Kurupuni Street, you can keep going down, and then you can go quite safely left into South Road. If you go down Herbert Street, you've got to then contend with the fact you've got to turn into Dixon Street, and then you've got a crossover, so it's not feasible. Whoever designed it didn't quite do the maths, I don't think. Also, are the parents who take their children to the after-school activities and everything going to provide extra bikes for them? That's my 7 minutes.
No, you've got another minute.
I've got another minute.
Another
There's 6 minutes. Oh, good. Okay, so these are basically, I'm thinking more of safety. I'm not against cyclists, and I have been to Amsterdam and been run over about 2 or 3 times by bikes because they have absolutely no idea of, everybody sort of gives ways for bikes there. And also, if we are being extremely, it's rather ironic that we have 0.17 emissions, and in New Zealand we're trying to compete with the places that I've just been to, which is why I might be a little bit jet lagged because I just arrived home last night from overseas. And the cars in all the countries that I visited, and we're doing our wonderful best here in New Zealand down here to try and not have emissions from our cars, but perhaps they need to learn from us. I rest my case.
Thank you very much. Marilyn, have we got questions from Marilyn? No question from Marilyn. Marilyn, thank you very much. As I'll say to everybody, we're deliberating next Wednesday. Okay, we have Maureen Morris.
Excuse me, where do we find out the results from the deliberation on Wednesday?
Sorry?
Where do we find out the results from the deliberation on Wednesday?
Well, it'll depend whether the council comes to the decision on Wednesday, Aaron, but yeah, that's when we'll be looking to do that.
Read the timetable on Thursday.
And it will be live streamed, the meeting will be live streamed, well, you could come along and watch it. Could be entertaining. Yeah, there'll be minutes also. Okay, Maureen, hi. Maureen, you've got 7 minutes, 3 minutes of questions, you think? No,
7 minutes, I haven't written anything down.
Good on you, no worries. We've got your submissions on volume 1, page 328, the councillors. So Maureen, away you go.
Yeah, I'm dead against it. I put an alternative, but I'm against that. Because I feel that we don't need a cycleway down that area. Someone mentioned we need to go to work. Where are they going to work? Down Kirribilli Street or whatever. Work is CBD in here. So coming through there, you've got your green marking on the road for them to get to town. My big thing about it is, you're spending money on a cycleway. What about the footpaths? I'm 82 and I've got a little mobility scooter. And I've tried to get through, I get through to Panama, good. The footpaths up Reynolds Street are terrible. I've managed to find Essex Street's good. But to get to my shop, which is very important to me, my little shop around the corner from where I live, I have to sometimes drive off the footpath, onto the road, round this car that's parked on the footpath, and round and into my shop. I can't turn around with my scooter because it's too big, so I have to go to the fish shop and turn around. Every time I go to that shop, there's at least 12 cars parked around those 2 shops alone. You go on a Saturday or a Sunday, there's cars parked right along Colombo Road for the church, the other shop down the road, and the big thing is that you put that cycleway down there. I think the important thing we need to think about is the income of our business people that are there to help us, to have the convenience of not trying to get into town. I tried to go to town once and I had 2 cars parked on a footpath and I had to go out in the middle of the road and go like that, stop the traffic. Yeah, the old girl's on the scooter, okay, we'll let her go, and I go across the road, stop that way. Cars parked on the footpath in town. So I don't go to town often, I go to my shop. And their income is important to me. And I think we have to consider that. how many bikes go along Colombo Road? I have counted none in the 5 years I've been down at the bottom end of Workshop Road. None. So why are we having a cycleway proposed along that road that the cyclists don't use? As far as I know, there's one group go once a month from Henley and they go out Lees Pakaraka Road. They don't go along Colombo Road. They're social cyclists. The working cyclists bike along the green lanes in town. And they go along there because that's safe for them to go along. You've already put them there for the safety, right through. Why spend all that money down there, down by the netball courts? It's diabolical. It is diabolical. I have to pop along to the shop, to the hospital often. And you've got cars going like this, they don't know where they're going to go, they're driving all over the place. And that cycleway will cause so much disruption along Colombo Road. Fancy taking the whole length of Colombo Road, all that car parking out, for the people, for the public. They'll park on the footpath. They'll get in and they'll just park the same way as the people that can't get a park outside our shop when they want to. They'll park up the drive of the house next door. Go into the shop, do their shopping and go. You take their parking away, they won't be going to our shops. And they are my shop. And it's very important not to take their income away, because they're trying to make a living here in New Zealand as well. I'm dead against it. And I can't see any good reason from people I've listened to now to have it. Not one of them mentioned a mobility scooter. Not one of them. They never. One gentleman said the footpaths are very rough and dangerous to ride on. He mentioned that. I thought that was good. At least one person appreciates the fact the footpaths are crap. How many mobility scooters come past my place? I've got two in line where I live, and every day there's at least 5 mobility scooters go up Workshop Road. Backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Coming along Colombo Road, the same thing. I asked the people that planned this, and you people as well as the Waka, whoever they are, to come along and spend not just one day, some days down there and count the number of bikes for a starter. Don't tell anyone you're going to do it, otherwise these people that are for it, they'll send every person they want on a bike to go down Colombo Road. Make out you need it. Go down, spend the time down there and see what a busy, busy road that is for cars, and not for bikes and mobility scooters. Because I think the money should be spent on the footpaths, not just on Colombo Road, around the whole town that we've got. The footpaths are terrible.
Well, thank you, Maureen. That's really interesting. Thank you very much. Have we got questions for Maureen? No questions for Maureen. Maureen, thank you very much. And as I say, we'll be deliberating next Wednesday. Thank you. Kathleen Short. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, I'm actually known as Sue.
Yeah, well, I thought that.
Yeah.
Leave the Kathleen here.
Yeah.
You've got 7 minutes, 3 minutes. You've been sitting there listening anyway. You go for it.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say I do not have anything against having cycle lanes and seeing kids or more people on bikes getting fit. I've always been into sport myself, and the most activity I see the kids from Chanel is them walking down the road to the dairy for chicken and chips and back again. So I purposely looked when I was going home the other day at the kids all leaving school, and I saw one bike. So in saying that, I've had nothing against cycleways. I just think what I've looked at is the current proposal practical, and is it safe? So just listening to everyone else, some of my concerns are similar, and I might add that I live at 60 Herbert Street, just up past Chanel College, and I've been there for 20 years, so I've got a fairly good idea of what happens in the street. I'll just read out what I've written. So Herbert Street is a residential road with a high density of business, schools, sports club and church. Reducing parking in this area would cause congestion. There is a dairy on the corner of Columba Road, and rightly said that the business would be affected if that parking would be on that side of the road outside the dairy. And Herbert Street would be affected by the cycle lane coming through Columba Road. The street is also used for parking when there are games at Memorial Park. On these events it is common to have parking on both sides of the roads down past the college. There are many back sections on the side of the road where the proposal is going to go. And there's not just one residence, there's there's sometimes 3 or 4 houses in those back sections. So there's a lot of traffic actually coming out of those exits. There's further traffic entering Herbert Street from the bird reserve. Herbert Street seems to be a thoroughfare for logging trucks. Narrowing the road would add a risk. Also, we have a lot of cars that like to speed through this street. It is really scary. You can hear those cars coming, and I quite often think if the child walks out on that road at that point, they've got no show. I struggle to think of a street that has more parking requirements than Herbert Street and Masterton, with a level of activity other than residential. If you think from the shop, Columba Road end through to the end of Herbert Street, it's not a huge street, and at least one side, more than one side of that end of the street is taken up by Chanel College, Red Star and Chanel Court. The Cycling Strategy 2017 shows a proposed cycle route network for Masterton Town. Stated in the proposal was that much attention under the cycling strategy will be focused. I do not see on the map that there was an indication that there would be a cycling lane for new cyclists in Herbert Street. So there was lots of proposals in that map of where the future cycling lanes would pop up, but in the original plan there, I don't see one being indicated for Herbert Street, and there must be some reasoning behind that. The previous cycle lane in Columba Road was used by sporting spectators at the rugby and the netball for parking. That never seemed to be monitored. All those cars never moved on. It just was a total congestion. In a short period of time, it was then reinstated as parking. I can see that happening with this current proposal that goes ahead, because the need for parking is so high that people are going to park there anyway. I have a few safety concerns. Cyclists would have to cross busy intersections between Herbert Street and Columba Road and Dixon Street. The one where the dairy is, the intersection there is quite, when cars are parked either side of the road, or there'll be more cars on one side of the road, the visibility is not good, and looking at all these, got 4 directions plus movement of cars coming and going from the dairy. Cyclists on the road will be passed by logging trucks. Cyclists will need to be aware of cars coming out of back sections. If bus stop moves to the other side of the road, they will have a lot more college students crossing the road. Opposite side of the road will have higher volume of parking. Visitors will have to cross the road. The road will be a lot narrower, more congestion with parking on one side. So the few questions I have was, why was this decision made to have the cyclist lane in Herbert Street when it's not in the plan? What safety issues have been taken into consideration? And one little last one, is a rubbish truck allowed to drive in the cyclist lane? Will we have to put our bins across the road?
We have 6, by the way.
That's mine.
Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you. Any questions for Sue? No questions for Sue. Sue, thank you very much. As I've told others, we'll be deliberating next Wednesday. Okay, Liz and Dave Tubman. Dave? Yep. Bring your good lady up.
Pardon?
Did bring your good lady up. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, sir.
Good, mate. Dave, we've got 7 minutes to hear you and 3 minutes to ask you questions. Over to you.
I'll interject when she goes.
My main problem is living on Colombo Road. There's very, very few bikes go along there. The kids that go up to Lakeview and round to Makora and the Kura, majority of them are either on scooters or they're on the footpath. Very, very few bike. To my way of thinking, it seems to be a waste of money. We've got a huge pothole on the corner of Worksop Road that's just about big enough to drop a bike right into. Money should be better spent on that. The other lady said about the rubbish trucks. That's my main problem. We have the green waste, and when Dave's not around, there's no way I can move the green waste. So if I've got to take it out to the gate and then get it across the road with logging trucks and big trucks and cars hooting down there, and at weekends especially, the motorbikes are just ridiculous. Anyone on a push bike's going to be knocked off. There's no lights on our side of the road where the cycleway is going to go, and the lights on the other side of the road don't shine onto our side of the road. So if anyone's on a cycleway, they're not going to see anything because it's so dark on our side of the road. And the other problem is we've got a lot of people who do park their cars on the footpath on Colombo Road, and you know, I think if you take away what parking we do there, it's going to be bad for the area.
Yeah.
That's about mine.
David?
I sort of concur with Liz about the number of bikes going to and from Tim's school and round to the Kura and to the Makara. It's very minimal. Those who do use the bike, I have to say it's probably our Lycra Brigade from up Lansdowne area, but they're very, very few. Also on the road, our road, you've got the tour of Wairarapa, use that road quite a lot, up and down there. Children walk, as Liz said, also a scooter. How are you going to cater for emergency services? As Liz said, we have people parked outside our road, outside on our road. To me, if this goes ahead, I'll still get them to park outside our place. We have water pipe problems outside on Colombo Road, outside our house, and also outside our house we have the chorus phone box where they're often there fixing other people's problems. Whoever mooted to Wakakotahi this idea of a cycleway along there needs a bomb underneath them. What else have we got? Off-road parking. Wakakotahi going to provide me with off-road parking, so I can't have people parked outside my place. If we do get a cycleway, the ones I can see using it more often than children and the locals are the killer bees going up and down our street on their motorbikes on one wheel, and they're up and down that street quite often. Speed bumps across the road, more of those, yes, to slow down the cars, but as for a cycleway, the stupidest idea I've ever heard. That's my personal opinion. And by the way, has the locals in our community up and down the Colombo Road been surveyed on this proposal? You know, go and talk to them? I don't know.
Thank you, Dave. Dave and Liz. Questions for Dave and Liz? No questions, thank you very much. And as I say, we're deliberating next Wednesday and we'll be making a decision then.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Okay, Tina. Tina Paifenua.
I've come very unprepared.
Tina, you've got 7 minutes to speak and we've got 3 minutes to have questions. Don't worry about being unprepared, we just go for it.
Okay, so I heard about this cycleway and I didn't agree with its placement down Colombo Road. I think it's a very, very busy street. I've grown up in the area and I'm very, very familiar with it still as I live on Colombo Road at the minute. For starters, the placement of this crossing, I think it's very, very close to the corner, and multiple times I've jumped out to save a kid from a car, you know, they don't, because they speed along Colombo Road, and once they get past that first, even before the crossing, they're already speeding up to get to the other end because it's a long straight. I did see that there was other proposals for other areas, and I do agree with some of them, as I think we need to include Makota College and Kurakaupapa. There's also kohanga all down there. We have people that live very close by, you know, we live in the area because our children attend kura and kohanga. I think the cycleway should include them, and if you could pop around the huge chunk where it's like really busy with the 2 dairies and where everybody U-turns. It's a local dairy. I know they accept green cards at one of the dairies, and a green card is a working income card, which a lot of the families in the area they use a lot. Say on a Monday night and a Sunday, and you can only get a green card. Well, they're going to go there and get school lunches. I know for a fact. I've seen it. But if you could crop out that way, and I reckon even if you come up Johnson Street, or even put it on a footpath and extend the footpath, you know, broaden the footpath, so it's not on the road and you don't take up the road and you've got this allocated area. And yes, it might be in the way of cars who's reversing, but be mindful that school's between 9 and 3 o'clock and it's not that bad, you know, it's not that hard to, you know, just be mindful of kids who will be using this lane to get to and from school. That's all I've got to say. So if anyone's in Makota Road, I reckon, you know, the whole of Kurapuni, Chanel College included, even if you use Coburn Street, that's a very wide road and people like to speed, and if you do put that includes MPS also, if you do put in a cycle lane, I think that will help people be more mindful of Coburn Street, of these streets that they're going through, that this is now a cycle lane dedicated to kids. It includes all the schools and it goes all the way up to Lakeview, which is also to the hospital, do you know what I mean? And it cuts out the big main chunk of Colombo Road where I've witnessed to it's very, very congested. I've lived on both sides of town and I know that they're back roads for both. I've lived on Wainga and the Power Road, and I know that they're both back roads, Colombo Road and that was all.
Thank you, Tina. You did very well. Tina, any questions? Bex.
Hey,
Councillor Johnson.
Hello. Just a question. The dairy you're talking about with the U-turn, is that the one on Colombo Road and Herbert Street?
I believe they all get U-turned.
With the green card?
That's at the east side, the East End Dairy, yeah. Where I reckon we need to move the crossing from right at the corner, because it's a very blind corner, and I know there's like a turn on there every day, that if you don't see the kids coming from down the road or down that way, which I know to look because I'm from there, it's very easy to just swipe them at the...
I just wasn't sure which dairy.
The East End, yeah.
Any further questions for Tina? No further questions. Tina, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, really appreciate that. We're deliberating next Wednesday. Okay, now we have a break because Stephanie Hall, who was to speak to us next, is not coming, so I'll be adjourning this meeting now until 3:05. So,
Gary, can I just ask a question? Where do we see scooters and mobility scooters? Are they pedestrians or are they on the cycleways?
sorry, I don't know.
No, I'm not necessarily speaking to answer.
There could be somebody in the
because that,
staff
you know,
who may be able to talk to you in the break.
This has come out a lot, and we say that would see a lot, Masterton Primary School children, a lot of cyclists come down Herbert Street on scooters, and even from the college. More scooters, a lot of mobility scooters come out of the bird sanctuary. In fact, 2 of them have hit our cars at different times while we've been sitting there, and they've had their hoods down like this. So, yeah, I just wonder where scooters and mobility scooters fit in with pedestrians or bike people. It's just a thought to throw in that mix.
Yeah, you could have a talk. We're just adjourning the meeting now, but if Craig might have some information on that.
Good.
Barbara?
Are they continuing?
Well, it's 3 o'clock, we're going to have we have to start council meeting at 3.
Mobility scooter are actually allowed at the bike paths. You think they'd be able to, because the government still can't make up their mind whether they're a vehicle or they're a contract bike, whatever.
There's a big difference between people that go out for a bike ride together and our guys in the race.
So we've got a family
Pretty much we've just got
the number of times I've been at someone's attending a scooter, big brothers with the little 5-year-old one ride, and she's trying to gives me heart failure every time I see them, and, which is part of why I think it has to go a different way.
Changes from parts of the roads to the they're now putting
So you're saying that they got
there's a pedestrian crossing at the rugby outside Rugby. Because to me, going down, we didn't have 7 minutes and we're a business. And, I mean, I'm a life member of Netball and I'm a patron of Netball and a life member. I've got about 7 grandchildren that flit around with one. I mean, why is it she only made 2 or 1?